You think you're falling behind. You think you're losing. You think the silence around your life right now means something has gone wrong, that the universe forgot your name, that whatever window of opportunity existed for you has quietly closed while you weren't looking. But what if I told you that everything you're interpreting as failure is actually the final stage of preparation? What if the confusion, the exhaustion, the strange stillness that settled over your days is not the absence of progress, but the deepest form of it? What if you haven't been falling apart at all? What if you've been falling into place? Because here's what no one tells you about the biggest shifts in a human life. They don't announce themselves with fireworks. They don't arrive with a clear invitation. They begin in the dark. They begin in the silence. They begin in exactly the kind of moment you're sitting in right now, where nothing seems to be working and everything feels uncertain, and you can't quite remember the last time you felt truly confident about where you're headed. That feeling, that specific texture of not knowing, is not a sign that you've failed. It's the signature frequency of transformation in its final phase. Stay with me here, because what we're about to explore together is not just an idea, it's a recognition. Something in you already knows what I'm about to say. Something in you has been waiting to hear it confirmed. And by the end of this, you won't just understand your comeback intellectually. You'll feel it in your body. You'll sense it in your bones. You'll recognize that the momentum has already begun, and that the only thing that was missing was your awareness of it. Let's start with something that might seem counterintuitive. The greatest comebacks in human history, whether we're talking about individuals or civilization or ecosystems, they all share one pattern. And it's not the pattern you'd expect. It's not a story of someone hitting bottom and then climbing steadily upward in a nice, predictable line. That's the version we tell in retrospect because it's clean and it makes sense. But that's not how it actually happens. What actually happens is something far more interesting and far more quantum in nature. There's a period of what appears to be total dissolution. Everything that was familiar falls away. Identity structures collapse. Old certainties evaporate. The person enters a kind of void, a space where nothing from the old life works anymore, but nothing from the new life has materialized yet. And in that void, in that seemingly empty space, something extraordinary is occurring at a level that's invisible to the ordinary senses. Think about what happens at the subatomic level, when matter undergoes a phase transition. When ice becomes water, for example. There's a moment right at the melting point where the molecules are absorbing enormous amounts of energy, but the temperature isn't changing. From the outside, nothing appears to be happening. You could watch that ice and think it's stuck. You could measure it and see no progress. But inside, at the molecular level, bonds are breaking and reforming. The entire internal structure is reorganizing itself into something with completely different properties. Same substance, radically different expression. That's you right now. You're at the melting point. You're in the phase transition, and the reason everything feels so strange, so suspended, so uncomfortably still, is because the amount of reorganization happening inside you is so profound that all your energy is being directed inward. There's nothing left over to create visible external results yet. That's not failure. That's physics. Let that land for a moment. Really breathe into that. Because you've probably been judging yourself harshly for this period. You've probably been comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel and concluding that something is wrong with you. You've been looking at your bank account, your relationships, your career, your health, and seeing what looks like evidence that you're moving backward. But evidence is always historical. What you see in front of you right now is a reflection of who you were, not who you're becoming. It's the last echo of an old frequency that's already been replaced inside you, even though the external world hasn't caught up yet. This is one of the most important principles you will ever understand. External reality is a lagging indicator. It always has been. It always will be. The physical world you see around you is not showing you the present. It's showing you the past. It's showing you the materialized result of thoughts and beliefs and frequencies you were holding weeks, months, sometimes years ago. So when you look at your current circumstances and feel discouraged, you're essentially reading yesterday's newspaper and mistaking it for tomorrow's forecast. If this is landing for you, if you can feel something shifting as you listen, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. The real indicators of where you're headed are completely different. And if you check those indicators honestly, you'll notice something remarkable. You feel different than you did 6 months ago. Not better necessarily, not worse, but different. Something has shifted in how you perceive yourself and the world. Your tolerance for things that don't align with your truth has dropped dramatically. Situations you used to accept without question now feel unbearable. People you used to spend time with now feel draining. Habits you used to rely on now feel hollow. This isn't you becoming difficult or broken. This is your frequency changing. And when your frequency changes, everything that was calibrated to the old frequency starts to feel like static. That discomfort isn't a problem. It's proof that you've already shifted. The external rearrangement is just the part that hasn't caught up yet. Here's where it gets interesting. Quantum physics has shown us something that mystics have known for thousands of years. The observer affects the observed. The act of looking at something, of bringing conscious attention to it, literally influences how reality organizes itself at the most fundamental level. This isn't metaphor. This is documented in every quantum mechanics textbook in the world. Particles exist in a state of pure potential, a wave of possibilities, until consciousness interacts with them. Then and only then do they collapse into a specific reality. Now apply that to your life. Every day you're observing your reality. You're collapsing possibility into actuality with your attention, your beliefs, your expectations. And if you've been staring at the evidence of your old life, if you've been focusing your consciousness on what's wrong, what's missing, what's broken, then you've been unconsciously collapsing the quantum field into more of the same pattern. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because no one ever taught you that your attention is literally a creative force. But here's the shift that changes everything. You don't have to wait for your external reality to change before you change your observation of it. You can begin right now, in this moment, to observe differently. Not through denial, not through pretending everything is fine when it isn't, but through a deeper recognition that what you see is not all there is. That behind the visible reality, in the quantum field of pure potential, infinite versions of your life exist simultaneously, and the one that materializes is the one that matches your dominant frequency. This is why your comeback isn't something you have to create from scratch. It already exists. It's already real in the field of possibility. Your job isn't to build it. Your job is to become the vibrational match for it. And the beautiful, almost paradoxical truth is that all the difficulty you've been through has been doing exactly that. It's been stripping away everything that wasn't your true frequency. Every loss, every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment of rock bottom wasn't destroying you. It was refining you. It was burning away the false layers so that your authentic signal could finally come through, clean and clear. Think about how a sculptor works. They don't add material to create the masterpiece. They remove everything that isn't the masterpiece. The form was always there inside the marble. The sculptor's job is just to take away what doesn't belong. That's what life has been doing to you. And I know it hasn't felt like art. I know it's felt like destruction. But destruction and creation are not opposites. In the quantum world, they're the same process viewed from different angles. What looks like everything falling apart from one perspective looks like everything falling into place from another. Pause with that for a moment. Let yourself really consider the possibility that nothing has gone wrong. That every single thing that happened to you, even the things that felt catastrophic, were part of an intelligence so vast and so precise that your conscious mind couldn't track it. Not because you're not smart enough, but because the conscious mind can only process a tiny fraction full of the information that's actually flowing through your system. Your body knows things your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Your intuition has been picking up signals that your rational thinking has been dismissing. And that deeper knowing, that quiet voice that keeps telling you something big is coming. That voice isn't delusional. It's reading the field more accurately than your eyes ever could. I want to ask you something right now. What is the one thing your intuition has been telling you that your rational mind keeps dismissing? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes naming it is the first step to honoring it. Let me tell you something about the nature of breakthroughs that most people fundamentally misunderstand. We think breakthroughs are linear. We think you struggle, then you struggle a little less, then things get a little better, then a little better still, until eventually you arrive at success. That's not how it works. That's not how it has ever worked. Breakthroughs are non-linear. They're quantum. They happen in sudden jumps, not gradual climbs. In quantum physics, this is called a quantum leap. An electron doesn't slowly move from one energy level to the next. It doesn't travel through the space in between. It simply disappears from one level and instantaneously appears at another. No transition, no gradual journey. One moment it's here, the next moment it's there. And the space in between, the gap, it doesn't exist in any measurable way. Your life works the same way. You can be fully in the struggle on a Monday, and by Friday, 3 things converge that change everything. Not because you gradually improved over those 5 days, but because you reached a tipping point, a critical threshold where the internal shifts you'd been accumulating finally had enough energy to break through into physical reality. All at once. All at the same time. That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's quantum mechanics expressing itself through your lived experience. And here's what makes this moment so potent. You're closer to that tipping point than you've ever been. Every difficult experience you've survived has been adding energy to your system. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt that you pushed through instead of giving in, all of it has been building charge. You're like a capacitor that's been storing energy for months, maybe years. And there's a threshold, a precise point, where the stored energy becomes too much to contain and it has to discharge. It has to release. It has to express itself outward in a burst of manifestation that will seem sudden to everyone watching, but that you'll know has been building for a very long time. The people around you, the ones who haven't been paying attention, they're going to be shocked. They're going to see your life transform, and they're going to think it happened overnight. They'll say you got lucky. They'll say you were in the right place at the right time. They'll try to explain your quantum leap using linear logic, and it won't make sense to them. Let them wonder. Your job isn't to explain the invisible work. Your job is to let it express itself. But I want to go deeper here because understanding this intellectually is only the beginning. The real transformation happens when you move this knowing from your head into your body. When it stops being a concept and becomes a felt experience. Because your body is not separate from the quantum field. Your body is the quantum field expressing itself as matter. Every cell in your body is a quantum system. Every atom is mostly empty space vibrating at a specific frequency. And that frequency is not fixed. It's responsive. It changes based on your thoughts, your emotions, your state of consciousness. This is why, too, people can be in the exact same external situation and have completely different experiences. It's not the situation that determines the experience. It's the frequency of the observer. And this is why your comeback isn't dependent on external circumstances changing first. It's dependent on you changing first, on your frequency shifting first, and then watching external reality reorganize itself to match. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, not with what you think you should feel, but with what you actually feel. When you close your eyes and drop beneath the surface noise of your life, beneath the worry and the doubt and the mental chatter, when you sink down into the deepest part of yourself, what do you find there? Is it fear, or is it something else? Something quieter, something steadier, something that feels almost like a knowing that doesn't need evidence to sustain itself. Because if you're honest, if you really check, you'll find that beneath all the anxiety and uncertainty, there's a strange calm, a part of you that isn't worried at all, a part of you that seems to already know how this story ends. You've probably been ignoring that part because it doesn't match the evidence your eyes are showing you. But that part, that deep inner knowing, is the most reliable navigation system you have. It's reading the quantum field directly, without the filter of your conditioned mind, without the distortion of past experience, without the limitation of linear thinking. And it's telling you something very clearly. You're about to enter the biggest comeback of your life. Now let's talk about why the timing is what it is, because I know that's been one of your biggest frustrations. Why has it taken so long? Why couldn't this shift have happened years ago? Why did you have to go through so much before arriving at this threshold? Here's the answer, and it might not be what you want to hear, but it's the truth. If the breakthrough had come earlier, it would have destroyed you, not because the opportunity itself was dangerous, but because you wouldn't have had the internal infrastructure to sustain it. You would have received the blessing with an unprepared consciousness. And when the container isn't ready for what it receives, it breaks. Think about what happens when you put too much electrical current through a wire that's not rated for it. The wire burns out. It can't handle the energy. The same principle applies to human consciousness. There's a specific capacity required to hold certain levels of abundance, certain levels of influence, certain levels of love, certain levels of purpose. And that capacity has to be developed. It has to be earned through experience, not because the universe is punishing you or testing you, but because consciousness itself has to expand to hold what's coming. And expansion isn't comfortable. It requires a stretching. It requires being taken beyond your current limits. It requires exactly the kind of experiences you've been having. Every challenge you've faced was expanding your capacity. That financial struggle wasn't just about money. It was teaching your nervous system how to remain calm under resource pressure. That relationship that ended wasn't just heartbreak. It was teaching you your wholeness doesn't depend on another person's presence. That period of isolation wasn't just loneliness. It was teaching you how to source your own energy, your own validation, your own sense of purpose from within rather than from external circumstances. That betrayal wasn't just pain. It was teaching you discernment, the ability to read energy accurately, to trust your intuition over someone's words, to protect your field without closing your heart. These aren't random lessons, they're specific preparations, and they're specific because what's coming for you isn't generic. It's not a vague improvement in your circumstances. It's a precise assignment that requires a precise set of capabilities. And you now have those capabilities. You've been forged in exactly the right fire to do exactly the right work. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was accidental. Every single thing you went through was curriculum. Tell me in the comments, which lesson hit you the hardest? The financial pressure, the relationship, the isolation, or the betrayal? Sometimes recognizing the specific curriculum is what finally unlocks the graduation. Feel that in your body right now, not as a thought, but as a sensation. Let the recognition move through your nervous system that you haven't been failing. You've been being prepared. There's a massive difference between those two things, and your body knows which one is true, even if your mind has been telling you otherwise. Now here's where we need to address something that might be the most important piece of this entire conversation. The quantum field, the field of infinite possibility that I've been describing, it doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. This is the distinction that separates people who understand manifestation from people who actually experience it. You can want a comeback all day long. You can visualize it, affirm it, journal about it, create vision boards about it. But if your fundamental state of being, your baseline frequency, is still calibrated to struggle, to unworthiness, to not enough, then the field will continue to reflect that frequency back to you regardless of what you're consciously intending. This is not about positive thinking. Positive thinking is a surface-level strategy that tries to paste new thoughts on top of old programming. It doesn't work because the field doesn't read your thoughts. It reads your frequency. And your frequency is determined not by what you think, but by what you feel at the deepest level. By what your nervous system believes is true. By what your body holds as its default state. So the real question isn't, are you ready for your comeback? The real question is, have you become the person who can hold it? And the answer, based on everything you've been through, is yes. But you might not believe that yet. And that gap between who you've become and who you believe yourself to be is the last obstacle. Not external circumstances, not other people, not timing, just that gap. Just that outdated self-image that hasn't caught up to the internal transformation that's already occurred. What we've touched on here, the observer effect, the phase transition, the way your frequency shapes what the field reflects back to you. This is only the surface of a much deeper system. If you're feeling the resonance of these ideas and you're ready to explore the complete framework, from breaking free of survival static to becoming the broadcast itself. My ebook, Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness. Mastery walks you through all 9 master frequencies step by step, layer upon layer. It's linked in the pinned comment below. This is why I want you to try something right now, not later, not when you're in a better mood. Right now. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and take a breath that goes all the way down to the bottom of your lungs. Not a shallow chest breath, a deep belly breath that expands your entire torso. And as you exhale, I want you to let go of every story you've been telling yourself about who you are based on what's happened to you. Just for this moment, just for this breath. Let the stories dissolve. The story of not being enough. The story of always struggling. The story of being behind. The story of bad luck. The story of unworthiness. Let them all fall away like leaves from a tree in autumn. Not because they weren't real experiences, but because they were seasons, and seasons end. Now in that space, in that cleared space where the old stories used to be, notice what's left. Notice what exists beneath the narrative. There's a presence there, a consciousness that was never damaged by any of the things that happened to you. A field of awareness that watched every struggle, witnessed every pain, experienced every loss, and remained fundamentally whole throughout all of it. That presence is what you actually are, not the stories, not the circumstances, not the history, the awareness itself. And that awareness is already vibrating at the frequency of your comeback. It's already there. It's already been there. The only thing that was blocking it was the density of the old stories sitting on top of it, like clouds covering the sun. The sun doesn't struggle to shine. It doesn't have to effort its way through the clouds. The clouds simply move. And when they do, the light that was always there becomes visible. That's what's happening to you right now. The clouds are moving, not because you're forcing them, but because you've stopped feeding them. You've stopped giving your energy to the old patterns. You've stopped reinforcing the old identity. And without that energy, the clouds have nothing to sustain them. They're dissipating on their own. And the light, your light, the light that was always there, is beginning to break through. This is the mechanism of your comeback. Not effort, not struggle, not forcing your way through obstacles, but allowing the natural expression of who you actually are to come forward now that the interference patterns have been cleared. Your comeback isn't something you have to make happen. It's something you have to let happen. There's a profound difference. Think about how water works. You don't have to force water to flow downhill. You just have to remove the dam. The water knows where to go. It's been pressing against that barrier the entire time, building pressure, building potential energy. And the moment the barrier is removed, it rushes forward with a force that's proportional to how long it was held back. The longer the restraint, the more powerful the release. How long have you been held back? How long have you been pressing against barriers? How much potential energy has been building in your system? Can you feel it? That restlessness you've been experiencing, that sense that something is about to happen, that feeling of being on the verge of something you can't quite name. That's the water pressing against the dam. That's your potential energy reaching critical mass. And the dam is cracking. Not slowly, not gradually. It's about to give way all at once. Now let me address something that I know has been weighing on you. The people who doubted you. the people who dismissed you, the people who looked at your struggle and made assumptions about your future, the people who weren't there when you needed them, the people who underestimated what you're capable of. Here's the truth about those people that will set you free if you let it. They weren't seeing you. They were seeing their own limitations projected onto you. When someone tells you that you can't do something, they're not making a statement about your capability. They're making a statement about their own imagination. They literally cannot conceive of the transformation you're about to undergo because it's outside the boundary of what they believe is possible. Their doubt has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the smallness of their own vision. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need them to see it. You don't need anyone to believe in your comeback for it to happen. The quantum field doesn't take a vote. It doesn't require consensus. It responds to the frequency of the individual observer. Your reality is being shaped by your consciousness, not by anyone else's opinion of what's possible for you. So let them doubt. Let them dismiss. Let them underestimate. Their disbelief doesn't subtract a single quantum of energy from what's building in your field. If anything, it adds to it. Because every time someone tells you it can't be done and you keep going anyway, you're demonstrating a level of inner authority that the field recognizes and responds to. But, and this is crucial, the response can't come from a place of wanting to prove them wrong. That's still giving your power to external validation. That's still making your transformation about other people. Your comeback has to be sourced from something deeper than revenge or vindication. It has to come from alignment. From the simple, quiet recognition that you were designed for more and that the time for more has arrived. Not to show anyone anything, but because it's who you are. Because the compressed, diminished version of you that's been walking around for the last however many months or years was never the real you. It was a temporary contraction. And contractions, by their very nature, are followed by expansion. This brings us to something I want you to understand at the deepest possible level. The universe doesn't operate on the principle of scarcity. It operates on the principle of rhythm. Contraction and expansion. Inhale and exhale. Winter and spring. Tide in and tide out. There is no permanent contraction. There is no eternal winter. The rhythm always turns, always, without exception. And the depth of the contraction determines the magnitude of the expansion that follows. This isn't optimism. This is physics. This is the fundamental pattern that governs everything from the pulsing of stars to the beating of your heart. You've been in contraction, deep contraction, and the depth of that contraction is not a measure of how bad things are. It's a measure of how powerful the coming expansion will be. The universe pulled you back like an arrow in a bow, and the further back you've been drawn, the further forward you're about to fly. Not because you deserve it as some kind of cosmic reward, but because that's how the mechanism works. It's impersonal, it's reliable, it's already in motion. So what do you do now? What is the practical application of everything we've been exploring? How do you cooperate with this momentum instead of unconsciously resisting it? The first thing is to stop checking for evidence. I know that sounds counterintuitive. We've been trained to be evidence-based, to only believe what we can see and measure and verify. But in the quantum world, the act of looking for evidence actually collapses the wave function prematurely. When you're constantly checking your bank account to see if abundance has arrived, constantly scanning your environment for signs of the breakthrough, constantly measuring your progress against some imagined timeline. You're doing the equivalent of opening the oven door every 2 minutes to see if the cake has risen. Every time you open that door, you let the heat out. Every time you check for evidence, you interrupt the process. Instead, trust the process. Trust the internal shifts you've already made. Trust the discomfort that tells you the old reality no longer fits. Trust the knowing that lives beneath your doubt, and redirect your attention from what is to what's becoming. Not through fantasy or denial, but through the deliberate choice to align your observation with the reality you're moving toward, rather than the reality you're moving away from. The second thing is to take one aligned action, not 20, not a complete life overhaul. One action. One decision that is consistent with the version of you that has already completed the comeback. It might be a conversation you've been avoiding, a boundary you've been afraid to set, an application you've been hesitating to submit, an investment in yourself that you've been telling yourself you can't afford, a creative project you've been keeping hidden. One action. That's all. Because one aligned. Action in the quantum field creates a cascade. It's like dropping a single pebble into still water. The ripples extend far beyond the point of impact. One decision made from your new frequency sends a signal to the field that you've changed. And the field responds, not eventually, immediately. Even if the physical manifestation takes a little time to materialize, the energetic response is instantaneous. The third thing is to protect your field. This is something most people overlook entirely, and it's one of the most critical factors in whether a comeback sustains itself or collapses. Your energy field, the electromagnetic field generated by your heart and brain, is a real measurable phenomenon. It extends several feet beyond your physical body, and it's constantly interacting with the fields of other people, with the collective field of your environment, with the informational field of the media you consume and the conversations you participate in. During a phase transition, during the exact kind of quantum shift you're in right now, your field is particularly sensitive. It's recalibrating. It's finding its new set point. And during that recalibration, exposure to low-frequency inputs can pull you back into the old pattern before the new one has fully stabilized. This isn't about being paranoid or isolating yourself. It's about being intentional, about choosing what you allow into your field during this critical window, about spending less time with people who drain you and more time in states that nourish you, about reducing your consumption of content that generates fear and increasing your exposure to content that generates coherence, about treating your energy field with the same care you'd give to a garden in its most delicate phase of growth. The fourth thing, and this might be the most important of all, is to practice receiving. Because here's what I've noticed about people who are on the verge of their biggest comeback. They're often excellent at giving, at enduring, at pushing through, at surviving. But they're terrible at receiving. Something in their programming tells them they have to earn everything, that nothing should come easily, that if it feels good, it must be suspicious. And this programming acts as a filter that blocks the very abundance that's trying to reach them. Receiving is a skill. It's a frequency. It's a state of openness that has to be practiced deliberately because most of us were never taught it. We were taught to work hard, to be independent, to not need anything from anyone. And while those qualities served us during the contraction phase, they become obstacles during the expansion phase. Expansion requires receptivity. It requires softening. It requires the willingness to let good things in without immediately questioning whether you deserve them. So practice receiving. Start small. Receive a compliment without deflecting it. Receive help without feeling guilty. Receive a moment of peace without immediately filling it with productivity. Receive the possibility that your life is about to change dramatically without your mind rushing in to explain why it can't. Just receive. Let the energy in. Let the goodness land. Let yourself be held by a universe that has been preparing this moment for you with more precision and more care than you can possibly comprehend. There's something else I want you to understand about the nature of this comeback. It's not just for you. And I don't mean that in a guilt-inducing way, like you have some obligation to save the world. I mean it in a quantum way. In the quantum field, everything is entangled. Every particle that has ever interacted with another particle remains connected to it, regardless of distance. This means that your frequency shift doesn't just affect your life. It affects the entire web of consciousness you're connected to. When you rise, you create a resonance pattern that makes it easier for others to rise. When you break through, you weaken the barrier for everyone behind you. Your comeback is not a solo event. It's a collective contribution. The people who are watching your life right now, some of them are in their own dark night. They're in their own contraction phase. They're wondering if things will ever change. And when they see your transformation, when they witness the distance between where you were and where you're going, something will shift in their field too. Not because you gave them a lecture or told them what to do, but because your living example will create a new reference point in their consciousness. It will expand what they believe is possible. And that expansion of belief is the first step in their own quantum leap. So your comeback isn't selfish. It's necessary. The world needs you to complete this transformation. Not the diminished version of you that's been playing small. The full version. The version that's been waiting behind all those layers of doubt and conditioning and fear. The version that knows exactly what it came here to do and is finally ready to do it. I want you to feel into something right now. Feel into the field around you. Not with your mind, but with your body, with your heart, with that part of you that senses things before they become visible. Can you feel it? There's a charge in the air, a density of potential that's almost palpable. Something is converging. Connections you don't know about yet are forming. Opportunities you can't see yet are aligning. Resources you didn't know existed are moving into position. The invisible architecture of your next chapter is almost complete. And when the last piece clicks into place, the manifestation will be sudden. It will be unmistakable. It will be so perfectly timed that you'll look back and realize every delay, every detour, every disappointment was a precise navigation point leading you to exactly this moment. This is how the quantum field works. It doesn't operate on human timelines. It operates on coherence. When all the elements reach a state of coherence, when the internal frequency matches the external opportunity, matches the collective readiness, everything collapses into manifestation simultaneously. Not one thing at a time, everything at once. That job and that relationship and that healing and that abundance and that clarity and that purpose, all of it arriving in a compressed window of time that will feel almost supernatural, but is actually the most natural thing in the world. It's just nature doing what nature does, organizing chaos into order, turning potential into actual, converting the invisible into the visible. And you, sitting here right now, listening to these words, Feeling whatever you're feeling, you are the convergence point. You are where the invisible becomes visible. You are the place where quantum possibility collapses into lived reality. Not someday, not when you're ready. Now, because you are ready. The fact that you're here, the fact that something drew you to this exact message at this exact moment is itself evidence of the coherence that's building. Nothing is random. Nothing is accidental. You didn't stumble onto this by chance. You were drawn here by the same intelligence that's orchestrating your entire comeback. And that intelligence doesn't make mistakes. Let me leave you with this. There's a concept in quantum physics called superposition. It means that a particle exists in all possible states simultaneously until it's observed, until consciousness interacts with it and collapses it into one specific reality. Right now, in this very moment, your future exists in superposition. Every possible version of your life, from the most diminished to the most expanded, exists simultaneously in the quantum field. And the version that becomes real, the version that collapses from possibility into actuality, is the one that matches your dominant frequency of observation. You've spent a long time observing yourself through the lens of struggle, through the lens of not enough, through the lens of what's gone wrong. And the field has been faithfully reflecting that observation back to you. Not as punishment, just as physics. But right now, in this moment, you have the power to shift your observation, to look at yourself and your life through a completely different lens, to see the struggle not as evidence of failure, but as evidence of preparation, to see the delay not as denial, but as development, to see the silence not as abandonment, but as the sacred pause before the symphony begins. And when you make that shift, when you truly change how you observe yourself, the field has no choice but to reorganize. It has to. It's not a matter of belief or hope or wishing. It's a matter of law. The same law that governs the behavior of every particle in the universe governs the behavior of your reality. Change the observation, change the reality. That's not philosophy. That's physics. Your comeback is not a future event. It's a present reality that's been waiting for you to observe it into existence. And you're doing that right now. With every breath you take that's aligned with your new frequency, with every old story you release, with every moment of trust that replaces a moment of doubt, you're collapsing the wave function. You're selecting the timeline. You're choosing the version of reality where everything you've been through becomes the foundation for everything you're about to build. Consider sharing this with someone you know who's in their own phase transition right now. When you send this to someone who needs to hear it, you're not just passing along a video. You're creating a quantum entanglement between their awakening and yours, amplifying the frequency shift for both of you and sending a signal to the field that you're ready to be a channel for transformation, not just a recipient of it. So here's what I want you to do, not tomorrow, not next week, in the next breath. Make a decision. Not a dramatic, life-altering decision, just a quiet, internal one. Decide that the contraction is over. Decide that you've extracted every lesson from the difficulty and that you're ready to enter the expansion. Decide that you're done interpreting your circumstances as evidence of your limitations and start interpreting them as evidence of your preparation. Decide that the comeback isn't coming. It's here. It's now. It's you. And then take one step. Just one. the smallest possible action that aligns with that decision. Send the message, make the call, open the document, set the boundary, speak the truth. Whatever it is, you already know what it is. You've known for a while. You've just been waiting for permission. So here it is. Not permission from me, permission from the deepest part of yourself that has been orchestrating this entire journey. The part that pulled you back so it could launch you forward. The part that dissolved the old so it could create the new. The part that knew, even when you didn't, that this was always leading somewhere extraordinary. You haven't been falling behind. You've been being positioned. You haven't been losing. You've been being prepared. You haven't been stuck. You've been storing energy for the most powerful quantum leap of your entire existence. The wait is over. Not because the external world has given you a signal, but because something inside you just shifted. Something clicked into place while you were listening to these words. Something that was almost ready became fully ready. And now the coherence is complete. Now the wave function is collapsing. Now the dam is breaking. Your comeback starts now. Not as a hope, not as a wish, as a fact, as a frequency, as the inevitable expression of everything you've become through everything you've survived. And it's going to be bigger than anything you've imagined. Not because the universe is being generous, but because the universe is being precise. It's giving you exactly what matches the frequency you've been developing in the dark, in the silence, in the struggle. And that frequency, refined by fire, purified by pain, strengthened by every moment you refuse to give up, that frequency is extraordinary. You are extraordinary, not because of what you've accomplished, but because of what you've endured and who you've become through the enduring. That's the real victory. That's the real comeback. Not the external results that are about to manifest, although they will be remarkable, but the internal transformation that made them possible. You already won. The external world just hasn't received the memo yet, but it will, soon. Sooner than you think. And when it does, when everything clicks into place and the life you've been holding in your heart finally materializes around you, remember this moment. Remember that you knew before you could see. Remember that you trusted before you had evidence. Remember that you chose to shift your observation before the reality shifted to match it. Because that's the real power. That's the real secret. That's the real quantum truth that changes everything. You didn't just survive your story, you transcended it. And the world is about to find out what that looks like. Breathe into that. Let it settle into every cell, and then rise. Not with force, not with effort. With the quiet, unstoppable certainty of someone who already knows how this ends. Because you do, you've always known. And now, finally, it's time. If something in this message resonated with the part of you that's been waiting to hear it, leave one word in the comments. Just one word that captures what you're feeling right now and on. If you want to stay in this frequency, if you want to keep receiving transmissions that speak to the deepest part of your becoming, subscribe and stay close, because this is just the beginning. And what comes next is going to be extraordinary. Now that you understand the mechanics of your comeback, go watch your timeline is shifting right now, and your nervous system already knows. It reveals why your body has already been picking up on the shift before your mind could catch up, and it will show you exactly how to work with that signal instead of against it.